Hope everyone's having a great Friday. Thank you for tuning into Aleph Academy. I'm Janaka. I'm a software engineer at Aleph Labs. Now, Aleph Academy is a session we do every last Friday of the month. This is the second one for the year. So we usually talk about digital transformation, new technology, research, user experience design, and that kind of stuff. So I'm really excited to have Erik Posthuma as our guest today. His official title with Aleph is Chief Growth Officer, so he's always on the lookout for new opportunities. He has his eye on new technology, but also unofficially he's our resident blockchain evangelist. He's often seen around the office in his Ethereum t-shirt, which I believe he's wearing today as well. Yeah, so let's jump right into it. Over to you, Erik.
Thank you so much, Janaka and team. Happy Friday. Thanks for having me. I'm going to speak about DeFiance, or decentralized finance, how primates, primitives, and a pseudonym are transforming the finance world as we know it. But before that, a small video.
But you know, I think about this, and what about this internet thing? Do you know anything about that?
Sure.
What the hell is that exactly?
Well, it's become a place where people are publishing information.
Right.
So everybody can have their own homepage. Companies are there. The latest information. It's wild what's going on. You can send electronic mail to people. It is the big new thing.
Yeah, but you know, it's easy to criticize something you don't fully understand, which is my position here.
Go ahead.
But I can remember a couple of months ago, there was like a big breakthrough announcement that on the internet or on some computer deal, they were going to broadcast a baseball game. You could listen to a baseball game on your computer. And I just thought to myself, does radio ring a bell? You know what I mean?
There's a difference.
There is a difference.
It's not a huge difference.
What is the difference?
But you can listen to the baseball game whenever you want.
All right.
Too.
Oh, I see. So it's stored in one of your memory deals,
Exactly.
and then you can come
That's
back
the
a year
RAM
later.
thing you talked about earlier.
Yeah. Do tape recorders ring a bell?
So the reason why I'm showing this video is to kind of remind ourselves that the things that we take granted for now took over 25 years to build. This video is from 1995, where Bill Gates tries to explain the internet to David Letterman. It's just really interesting to see the perception of people on these big technology changes at that time. And what I'm really excited about is if blockchain, kind of modern blockchain and crypto, was only created in 2008, we'll only really see the super exciting things in 2030, so still 10 years from now. Now, before I actually reach about talking about decentralized finance or DeFi, I need to give a bit of a primer on what is blockchain, and I'll keep it quite high level. I think there are three main components in blockchain. One is the actual data that we're storing. Secondly is the database that stores it. And thirdly is the way to access that data, so your account. So if we think about the data really represents what actually happened. What is the truth that we are recording? So imagine we have an Excel sheet at Aleph, and 100 of us Alephians all have a version of this Excel sheet, and we're allowed to add entries on it one by one in that Excel sheet. But for every entry that we want to add, for every item that we want to record, at least 51 of us have to agree that whatever we put in that Excel sheet is the truth. And every time we put an entry into that Excel sheet, it links that entry to the previous entry, a bit like a chain, so it's really hard to separate them. Now imagine that we start by adding a truth that all of us 100 Alephians have $10. And if Aman gives Ben $1 and we want to record that as an entry in that Excel sheet, 51 of us have to agree and say, yes, now Aman has $9 and Ben has $11. And over time, you note down who has what, which every transaction. And over time, you'll have thousands, if not millions, of entries. Now imagine that if you want to change the entry in that Excel sheet, you would have to change every other transaction before it because these entries are linked. These blocks are chained together, hence the name blockchain. Not only that, but you're only able to do that if 51 Alephians agree to change the previous entries in that Excel sheet. And remember, this database keeps track of how many dollars each of these 100 Alephians have. So first of all, it would take a lot of effort over time because it's millions of entries. And if you ask me to change an entry in this database, I have to physically go in, be part of the team that changes every single entry in that Excel sheet. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of computational power. Secondly, no one would really want to do it because if you affect one entry, you affect everyone's entry. So you might be affecting my entry, which shows how many of those dollars are actually mine. And this is really the core of the blockchain. Effectively, blockchain solved the double spend problem. If you think about the internet, it made everything duplicatable. It made everything copyable, which was great for information and content. But it was really hard to see, capture one unique thing. A picture of a dollar can be shared, multiple times. But this blockchain created a way to have uniqueness on the internet, which is why the initial part is very important. The second part, which is the database, is all about, do we all agree? And this is why distributed is important. So we go back to those 100 Alephians, adding entries into one Excel sheet. Let's imagine it's a centralized system and we appoint Jasneet because we super trust her to record our entries, and we keep telling her, I gave money, I gave $1 to Aman now has $11, Erik has $9, and Jasneet puts it in. That's a centralized system. Now, what is the weakness of that? If something happens to Jasneet, or she wants to do something funny, she can do so, right? But most of our systems right now are centralized. Decentralized is, let's say, if we get a couple of copies of the same Excel sheet. So some of us might agree, but not all of us agree. Now, the real kind of big thing, again, about blockchain is that it's distributed and everyone has a copy of that Excel sheet. Any changes made to that Excel sheet, the majority needs to agree on that. And every time we update it, we check each other's Excel sheets and we see, okay, are we all tracking the same thing? And if someone tries to put in a fake entry, it's not one person that can say yes or no. All of us have to say yes or no to that. Which means that actually, I don't need to trust Jasneet. I don't need to trust a central holder of the information because the trust is built into the system, right? In fact, in the case of Bitcoin, for example, there are even miners or ledgers in space. So if the Earth collapses and there's this massive explosion on Earth, there will still be satellites in the world that know how many transactions have happened and who owns what. The third kind of fundamental thing to understand is how to get access to this blockchain. Are you who you say you are? That's important for transactions because we need to know, who to assign certain ledger transactions to, which basically then says, who has that piece of value, who has that Bitcoin, who is operating with that smart contract. So in the example of the Excel sheet, you have here a gentleman that can create through a centralized way, through Gmail, a public email address, so Aman at alephacademy.com, but he has the keys, he has the username and access to log in and see what people sent to that email address. So it doesn't really matter who's behind Aman at alephacademy.com because we know Aman controls the keys, he controls the username and password. So whatever happens with that email, it was him who interacted or made that happen. So the same thing is the case with any of these blockchains where you create through a wallet, a public key and a private key, where the public key is effectively a string of numbers and letters that you expose to the public that people can send money to or can send certain transactions into. And the private keys are the string of numbers and letters that you hold and you have to keep very tightly, because that allows you to access your wallet or your email account. Now, what is a bit different about doing this on, for example, the Bitcoin blockchain? Like, from a UX perspective, it's a bit harder. You have to jump through a couple of hoops. But from a data and KYC perspective, it is much easier, or the requirement for data is much less than a Gmail account even. You don't need to put a name, you don't need to put a phone number, you don't need to put an email address. There's literally zero KYC and you can create a wallet. And just like with an email address, your reputation is built around that email address or around that public key. You don't need to trust Google at all. And the puzzle that we had created and launched actually gave access to the private keys of a wallet that had about $25 US worth of Ethereum inside. So when we launched this DeFi crossword puzzle, the answers were 12 words, and if you put them into a wallet, you could get access or control over the Ethereum that was inside. So congratulations, Dylan, who last night at 20 past midnight, I got an alert saying that someone had moved money out of this account. So congratulations for winning that. This was important foundationally to understand that the data within the blockchain is immutable effectively, which means you cannot change it and no copies can be made. So you create a uniqueness. The database is distributed and trustless. I don't need to trust anyone. I can operate with it and believe that what the code says will happen. It's not like WhatsApp that says, hey, I'm not gonna expose your data for advertising purposes, but then eventually does so. And you can access your account pseudonymously. And what that really means is that it's kind of anonymous, right? So you don't have to show your name, you don't have to go through any KYC, you can just get started for that. Now that brings us to the question, this still doesn't explain why one Bitcoin is worth right now around 50,000 US dollars on this beautiful Friday. So a big part of what I think is important in the blockchain world is its interaction with incentives. So remember, on the blockchain, you can't change what's on the blockchain. Whatever is put in is the actual truth. Secondly, you cannot change the rules of the blockchain unless the majority agrees. Thirdly, anyone can really interact with it. There's zero KYC involved. You just need to create a public key and a private key to interact. And the way these blockchains work is that they all start with an idea. So let's pick a blockchain. For example, Bitcoin was created by a pseudonym called Satoshi Nakamoto. The core idea of the Bitcoin blockchain is that there will only be 21 million Bitcoin. That is the core idea. That is the foundational idea. Nothing really beyond that. There will only be 21 million Bitcoin in the world. And with that, he wanted to point towards scarcity and all of this stuff. So he had this idea. He was an engineer and he created this blockchain. The second step is that investors or outsiders come in, look at this idea and think, okay, I think this might be a good idea. I think it might be good to have something in the world that is pure scarcity based on math, not based on natural resources like mining, etc., but really based on the code. There's full scarcity, so there's only going to be ever 21 million Bitcoin. And believing in this vision, they buy some of this. So they add fiat currency into the system. Now the next step is, there's an idea, there will only be 21 million. There are the first believers of that idea, the first investors. And another group comes in that says, I'm willing to mine or validate, if you're talking about other blockchain, to protect the system. If I take it back to the previous example of those 100 Alephians that put in the entries into the Excel sheet, those people are basically the miners and validators. By doing that job of putting those entries into the Excel sheet, they get a chance to basically get one of these tokens attached to this blockchain, in this case Bitcoin. And that's interesting for me because investors, people, are apparently willing to pay for that token. Then the next group comes in, which are the users. These are the people that they see an idea, they believe in the idea, they see that there are people in there that are putting in money and are willing to interact with it, and they see that there's an increasing number of miners and validators who are protecting the network or creating additional use cases. So with that in mind, I'll become a user. And different blockchains can have different types of users. In the case of Bitcoin, it might be someone that truly believes in that scarcity of 21 million. But let's talk a little bit about some other blockchains. There's another blockchain called Ethereum, which was launched by a gentleman called Vitalik Buterin. He is this kind of the Satoshi Nakamoto of Bitcoin, but in this case, Ethereum. And his core idea was that Ethereum solidity, the language that it's written in, the smart contracts that it can create, should be as easy and fluid as possible to create smart contracts, to create kind of mini programs which lay the foundation for Ethereum becoming a world computer. So that is the idea, that is the vision. Some investors believed in it, the first initial people. Then you had validators or miners, now going to be turning into validators, that help protect that system. And you have users. Now users come to Ethereum not necessarily because there's super scarcity, although there is some sort of scarcity within Ethereum. But they come in there because they love the flexibility of the language and the programs that it creates, which will later lead on to DeFi, and I'll show how that matches together. So you have a little bit of the basics of blockchain. You have a bit of how blockchain and value kind of interact together. And just to give a different angle to it, so if you can imagine a world where we store value, whether it's in Bitcoin or some form of stable coin or something else, with that you buy a network token, a token that allows you to interact with that protocol, that allows you to interact with that blockchain. That network token is then used to pay a smart contract for executing that smart contract. A smart contract is a certain agreement, a certain if-then statement. If the, let's take insurance as an example, if there is flooding in the north of Thailand, this insurance smart contract will disperse X amount of dollars into a certain wallet. So for that, you need data in, and there's a whole bunch of kind of organizations, oracles that are called, that are working on that. And you need the ability to enforce this smart contract, which in a place like finance is a bit easier because everything is digital. And then the individual users use applications to interact with those smart contracts. So in the case of Ethereum, maybe Poon wants to make an agreement with Aman that if the housing price goes down by X%, so that is data in through an oracle, that Aman owes Poon a certain item, right? I don't know what that item could be, maybe like X amount of money or whatever. But with this in mind, so you've got the value, you've got the blockchain, you've got the interaction with the real world. The big questions that are going on right now in the space is, if in the real world you can interact with anyone in the world without anyone's permission, and if in the blockchain you can create agreements that ingests any real world data, and you know for sure that what you agree on will happen, and if you could store value, what would you make? What could you actually create? And like the way I kind of think about it is, if you look at the internet or if you look at mobile, there's a few waves of innovation that happen. So first, you would make the things you know better. For example, with the internet, buying things online and Amazon is obvious. I use that word really carefully because it's not easy, but there's a certain offline behavior. I buy things in a bookstore. To replicate that online is kind of the first wave. You do the things that you know better. Interesting little backstory that kind of ties it back to how people are feeling about blockchain and crypto right now is that actually in 1986 there were regulations passed in the US that the internet, as it was then known, was to be used only for academic purposes. So no commercial transactions could happen on the internet. In 1992, there was the launch of Bookstacks Unlimited. So effectively, they were operating illegally, because that is kind of known as the first e-commerce marketplace online. And it was only in 1995 that the ban on internet commerce was lifted, and it was legal to do commerce online, and that happens to be the year 1995 that Amazon was launched. So I just want to tie it back to the Bill Gates video, that what we take for granted right now, e-commerce over the internet, was not something that was even legal at the time. So the first wave are the obvious things, the very difficult things, but the obvious things. It's only then after that the counterintuitive things happen, the second wave, all the things you're not supposed to do. So, for example, Uber is all about don't get into car with strangers. It feels counterintuitive, but it became a network on a network, so really massive. Facebook, don't expose everything about your life. Don't put everything, your personal details on the internet, yet Facebook is the largest social network in the world. Airbnb, don't let strangers in your house, yet with Airbnb, we do that. It's the second wave was all about the things you're not supposed to do. But let's go back to the first wave, and let's go back to blockchain. If we apply this thinking to blockchain, then the first wave of blockchain innovation, it makes sense that it's DeFi. It makes sense that it's decentralized finance. There is value involved, money involved, something that the blockchain we've just discussed can store. And there are contracts involved. You know, in the past, big kind of paper contracts, and now it's on computer databases. There's contracts involved. Additionally, there's lots of data involved, and most of it is digital. So first wave is you make the things you know better. And that's exactly what these startups are doing around DeFi. They're looking at the different jobs to be done that we have when we interact with the financial services space, and doing a blockchain crypto version of it. There are hundreds of startups creating projects around depositing, lending, borrowing, investing, saving. And what started maybe a couple years ago and last year started picking up. Last year, there was less than $1 billion in the DeFi system. Remember early 2020, pre-COVID. Today, a year later, it's over $38 billion that locked into DeFi. So what are some examples of DeFi? Well, let's take the jobs to be done of having or getting a personal loan. This company is working on collateralized loans. I put in crypto, I get out fiat. Why is it better than normal loan or a bank loan? Lower fees, lower rates, no paperwork, no real KYC, immediate, less overhead costs. You're not paying for the massive building in the CBD. Look, I'm not saying that all the answers are there. These are just things that I find very interesting. In the payment space, blockchain, crypto, Facebook is creating a stable coin. It was Libra, now it's called Diem. The Diem payment system is for everyone. And their tagline is moving money around the world should be as easy and as cheap as sending a message. So when this launches eventually, if it launches, when it launches, you can send Diem coin using Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram with over 2.8 billion users. Why is this valuable? I mean, if you live in a country where your currency is perhaps not stable, this might be valuable. If you're unbanked but you have Facebook, Instagram, or WhatsApp, and you want to interact or transact with people, this might be valuable. And once this is there, imagine a world where, you know, on a post that you post on Facebook and Instagram, for every like, you get 0.01 Diem coin. Because in the end, Facebook is being paid by advertisers for your attention. So interesting things happening there. Deposits. I find this super interesting. It's a protocol or a company called Pool Together. You put in your money for a month. So I put in, let's say, $100 in this smart contract with hundreds or thousands of other people. So there's a lot of money in this smart contract, this pool. That pool then earns interest over the period of, let's say, a month. And at the end of the month, the total interest of all the 100 odd people in that pool is through a lottery sent out to one lucky winner. So you can imagine you put in $100. at the end of the day, you still get your full $100 back, but you have a chance of winning a big prize. So that is something that that is kind of interesting that is happening in the DeFi space. Another interesting thing, streaming salary real time. So using a smart contract to get a stream of salary instead of a monthly salary. What does this mean? I don't know yet. What are some of the use cases? Can you do micro consultations where you get paid by the minute? I'm not sure, but you can see just interesting things happening in the space because of smart contracts. This whole space around oracles. This is a company coin called Chainlink. They focus a lot on financial data, pulling financial data in that you're then able to inject into smart contracts, and they're adding much more data. So it's kind of interesting to think about what can you do if all data in the world goes through a trusted party like the Link Oracle and then feeds into a smart contract. So imagine a future where you are streaming part of your salary to your landlord. So instead of a monthly payment, you stream a part of your salary to the landlord. But there's a connected device in your apartment put in by the landlord that notices that there's a water leak. This water leak information is pushed through the Oracle, trusted kind of API layer, into your tenancy agreement smart contract. In the tenancy agreement smart contract, it says as long as the leak is there, the inhabitant does not have to stream rent, and automatically the rent that you've been streaming to your landlord goes to your wallet instead of the landlord until this leak is fixed. All done kind of within the smart contract. So I don't know, it's just a really interesting space. Insurance, again, doing things that we do right now, but better. This is a company called EtherRisk where you can collectively build insurance products, whether it's flight delay or crop insurance. Again, you need the data. You need flood data for crop insurance or flight data for flight delay insurance, and you create a decentralized pool of insurance products. So anything that you want to insure, you could effectively create that using EtherRisk. Prediction market, it's all about probability. So here's a company where you can basically bet on anything. You can start a bet, and if people believe in it, they take the other side of the bet. And that allows you to price also certain financial products. So if I bet there that I won't use Aleph, but if BMW I think will go bankrupt within 10 years. If a lot of people believe that and they'll bet with me on this one, perhaps the company is more likely to default. Perhaps their loan should be more expensive, right? So you start seeing all of this kind of come together. So how might it play out? You have all of these DeFi Lego blocks, all of these jobs to be done. I think it's all going to form and compose together into this API layer, and we will interact with them without even knowing that we will interact with them. You'll have crypto native banks or wallets that allow you to deposit, borrow, save, lend, etc. You'll have fintech players that will allow you to do that, and you won't even really know that you're interacting with crypto. And then at the very last, of course, the traditional banks will do this as well. And we see this playing out. You've got Kraken, which is a wallet. They just got a banking license in the US. So you can completely see what's happening. They're going to offer deposit, loans, etc., all backed by crypto, but with an actual banking license. So you won't even know that it's really crypto in the background. Fintech, companies like PayPal launch the ability to buy, hold, and sell cryptocurrency, and they'll also expand with that. And you've got traditional banks, like for example, DBS, that will launch a digital exchange. They have announced that, together with SGX, and allow people to trade cryptocurrency, and they will actually custody the crypto for you, DBS. So you see things starting in the market, but that is phase one. Decentralized finance is phase one. So what would you make in phase two? What are some of the counterintuitive things? And here we get a couple of really interesting things. There is this whole movement online, or what is being explored right now is around tokenized digital goods through non-fungible tokens, so NFTs. Non-fungible means it's like truly unique item. Like my Bitcoin or my Ether is the same as your Ether or your Bitcoin. So there's multiple of that token. A non-fungible token means that there's only one of it. So if you can imagine the Mona Lisa, it's valued at about $1 billion. The original physical created by Leonardo da Vinci was about $1 billion. If you have a digital version of it, which is why I was able to post it here, it's for free. I can just copy paste it from the internet and put it into whatever presentation I'd like. But now there's this whole movement around non-fungible tokens. And someone took the Mona Lisa, created a non-fungible token, and right now it's being sold in the market for $1,800, and people are buying it, people are trading it. A couple of interesting about NFTs. Of course, all of us can take the Mona Lisa and create an NFT. So what is really the value if you cannot copy it? Well, it ties the NFT close to the creator. So there's an interesting space there. Because NFTs are based on smart contracts, you can write them in such a way that if I now sell this Mona Lisa NFT to someone else, the original creator gets a cut out of it. So this is a whole space around the creator economy that is really interesting. And it sounds really small, but actually it's growing really rapidly. Christie's, which is one of the largest auction houses and most well-known auction houses in the world, is for the very first time auctioning an NFT created by an artist called Beeple. It launched yesterday on the 25th of February and will be available until 11th of March. So please Google that and see what happens. I mean, there's estimations that it'll go for over $1 million, speaking in fiat currency. There's another company, the original company that created CryptoKitties. They worked on Top Shot. It takes moments from NBA history, like an amazing slam dunk or a winning half-court shot by a famous basketballer, and it creates an NFT. So people can buy that digital moment. So this is a collaboration between the NBA and Top Shot. So that is super interesting. There's this whole movement around DAOs, decentralized autonomous organization. Well, this is a brand called Saint Fame, where people who don't know each other came online and co-designed a fashion brand together that is going live and people are buying, etc. So all the agreements are smart contracts, etc. Again, I don't know where this space is going, but it's super interesting. If I look at Reddit, which is a community, right? You might know Reddit. You can earn points by contributing to Reddit, whether it's upvoting or writing or moderating. And so you can earn Reddit points and get rewarded for your work. It's an Ethereum-based token, so in the future you can probably move them out of the ecosystem and use them anywhere that kind of Reddit coins are accepted. So it's a bit like Facebook DM. So imagine Facebook DM, you get certain coins for certain things that you did on their platform. But speaking of social media, there's a lot of movement around decentralizing social media as well. This is a company called Planetary, but actually Twitter has created a small squad around the name Blue Sky that is trying to build the decentralized social protocol. Taking this even a step further, there's a company called, not company, I can't really call it company, right? There's a collection of people that are working on something called Decentraland. Decentraland is a virtual world where you can create, explore, and trade. And their tagline is the first ever virtual world owned by its users. So here you see you can buy land on Decentraland. You can contract a virtual architect to actually build you a house. You can build your own house, of course. You can take your virtual NFT, so the digital Mona Lisa, and display it in your art gallery here or loan it out. It's like this really interesting space, and you can contribute to the code as well. So tying it back to that wave 2, like this feels so counterintuitive to me. Why would you put so much value or put so much money into virtual land. Something else that seems counterintuitive to me is creator coins or creator tokens. If I'm an up-and-coming artist, can I create a token and say the next 10% of my earnings or my royalties I will distribute to the token holders? So if I believe in an artist, can I buy their creator coin? Can I buy a share or a slice of their future earnings, to support them, but also be very close to them? It feels counterintuitive. Shouldn't you protect your value as an artist? Another thing, it's counterintuitive to share your Wi-Fi with everyone, but there are blockchain startups out there that allow you to share your Wi-Fi with people and get rewarded in this case, helium coin. So that's something that's super counterintuitive to me. So all in all, I think the next 10 years are really exciting in the blockchain and crypto space. And if you're an engineer, designer, or anyone else, these are a couple things that you can do to interact or to get started. As an engineer, I would say write a smart contract. You can go to Consensus and find out more about that. And you'll see how interesting it is when money becomes programmable, when value becomes programmable. As a designer, create an NFT. Take one of your art pieces, go to nifty.inc and try to create an art piece there. So you have a digital item that is actually unique, right, on the blockchain. As a project manager or anyone else, buy some stable coins, earn yield on it, join a crypto community. Check out Uniswap and Aave. So thank you so much for listening in. I really enjoyed preparing this. So thank you so much also for the Academy team for all the support. Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks for listening. Over to you, Janika.
That was super interesting, Erik. Thanks. We've got a ton of questions on YouTube this time. So let's try to squeeze in some of them. But I gotta ask one question first. This from me. It was really surprising that you met Vitalik.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the equivalent of running into Bill Gates on the street in maybe the 80s or 90s. What was that like?
Yeah, no, it was crazy. I was walking down the road and I had my daughter in one hand and my wife was like walking next to me. It was here in Singapore, like about a year and a half ago.
Oh, it was in Singapore?
It was in Singapore, and he was walking towards me, and I literally almost dropped my daughter. And I was like, "Excuse me, are you Vitalik?" And if you've heard him speak, he's like a bit of a funny guy. So yes, I'm Vitalik. And I said, I love your work on Ethereum. Good luck on Ethereum 2.0. Can I have a selfie? And he said yes, and that was it, and we moved on. But yeah, it was a pretty fun moment.
That's awesome. So remember a couple of weeks ago when we started preparing for this, around early Feb, the price of Bitcoin was around 33K, and you correctly predicted it's going to be 50K when we're going to stream this live. So it's very volatile, right? The price of Bitcoin volatile. Is that something you think is good for cryptocurrencies, blockchain in general, or is that a lot of distraction from actually the benefit of the technology?
So a couple of thoughts that I have in my mind around that. I think the monetary value of a token in a network and the value of blockchain properties of that network are very closely tied together. So there's that interplay always. And if I think about price volatility, you have to imagine, if you were to kind of invest in a startup, something that is very new, currently, if you do that, you don't see the value of that going up and down. But the life of a startup, how much it sells in a year, it's very volatile. So you kind of almost have to see it like that, investing in a startup, if you believe in the future that startup is trying to create. And just the third thing that I want to say about volatility, I see it as a feature, as not a bug. It will become more stable over time. This is my sense. Again, none of this is investment advice. And I also think you have to compare the volatility If you look at oil futures last year, they went negative for, I think, the first time in history. So like if you compare to that, actually Bitcoin was super stable last year, right? So look, summary, over time, you get more stable. You just accept it, get diamond hands, stay really strong, and move forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So here's a question from YouTube. How are crypto wallets different from other types of wallet, like let's say GrabPay or something like that?
So where I think the big difference is not necessarily in the UI UX or where we as humans interface with the wallet. It's much more about the underlying infrastructure. If you think about finance in general, if we're talking about wallets, like everything that happens in finance is a collection of agreements and data. If something happens to either price or revenue or the way, that there's data involved, the then statement is, then this contract executes. So if you look at it like that, we now have a financial system that takes about like 7 or 6% of global GDP. And those are basically people writing those contracts or agreements and making sure that that data goes into those contracts and agreements. So I think the big difference is that the underlying structure of DeFi will replace, and I'm talking decades in my mind, kind of everything under the front end, if you will. So also, if you look at one of the slides that I had that showed kind of the building blocks or the Lego blocks of DeFi, and how it'll be exposed to, for example, a front end like the Grab wallet. I think that's eventually what will happen.
So this is related and getting a bit specific to Ethereum. What's your view on 2.0 and how it will impact wallets? And I also throw in this, if let's say the code in the blockchain, let's say Bitcoin, for example, there's consensus to change it, what happens to stuff in consumers' wallets? So even Ether 2.0, when it's rolled out, what will happen? Is there any impact to the wallets?
So, okay, so for the first part, what will happen with Ethereum 2.0? 2 parts. It'll become more scalable, and that will solve a lot of the throughput challenges that it's facing now, because DeFi, the majority of DeFi is being built on Ethereum. So there's lots of transactions that go through Ethereum. Ethereum 2.0 will solve a bit the scalability issue, so that the pipes become bigger. That's on one side. So that's on the kind of blockchain side, if you will. On the monetary policy side, it's going to more aggressively burn tokens, which maybe I'm getting a bit technical here, but it means that the stock-to-flow ratio of the Ethereum token reduces. It should, over time, stabilize the value of the token, hence creating a more stable blockchain. What will happen for the users in their wallets? Depending on which wallets you use, actually nothing much. Your Ethereum tokens will just be converted to 2.0. So from a user perspective, you won't see much change. Yeah.
So I think that's probably one of the big fears in people's minds, is when things change, does it affect them? But it will change, I assume, how things are mined.
Yeah, so in Ethereum, it moves from a mining protocol to a proof of stake protocol, which is a different way of validating the blockchain, and therefore makes it less kind of taxing on electricity and all of that. So yeah, that's the change.
So it's interesting, proof of stake. I know it's probably a bit technical, but the way proof of work is currently being used now is an industrial scale mining, right? It incentivizes people to mine, and what we can see now are like large data centers being repurposed just for mining. Is that something kind of opposite to the philosophy of Bitcoin, where everything should be decentralized and should be run by different people, different areas of the world? What do you think about that?
Yeah. fiction that goes on in the kind of Twitter space as well, in this whole space. I'd say I have two viewpoints on that. One is if you compare the energy Bitcoin mining consumes versus the financial system, it's like a tiny fraction. The counter argument is, but you cannot compare a proof of work blockchain system like Bitcoin to the financial system because it doesn't, So what do you then compare it to? You compare it to something that's a bit more alike, like for example, gold mining. And studies have shown that actually gold mining, which is a $10 trillion industry, it expends so much energy to mine gold, like magnitude order larger than Bitcoin. Look, I don't know how it's going to play out. The miners are getting much more efficient in their mining as well. So over time, it should solve that. But that's a very valid point. Yeah.
I was listening to. Let's just move on to something else. I was listening to your presentation, and oracles. That was kind of a new concept to me. And there was a related question on YouTube. So you spoke about this example, like how you stream rent, and if there's a leak, like you can detect it, and the contract is self-executing. So the question was, okay, who validates that a leak was fixed? How do you bridge this gap from digital to physical?
I think that's a space within blockchain that is really interesting. So the bridging the gap, I feel, has to take place on two sides. One is data in, and the other side is enforcement out. So data in means, right now, the reason why DeFi is popular is because the data is very readily available. Stock prices, financial things that happen in the market are all digital. That data goes in. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done to get real world data into the system in a trustable manner. There are companies working on that. One way you might see people solve that is through kind of multi-sensor validation. Let's say I have a leak in my apartment. It's not just one sensor that says it that was planted by the landlord. It's another sensor that has been put in by maybe the tenant themselves. So if both of those sensors agree, then that piece of data is truthful. Maybe that's one way of solving that. Another way, which I'll talk about on the other side, is
like sorry, I was just about to say there's like consensus of sensors.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And just to riff on that,
yes,
this is the whole kind of the thinking behind DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations as well. How do you then, as a group, decide what is truthful and what is not? So you should have a panel of kind of blockchain judges. If it ever gets to that level where I dispute that there's a leak in my apartment as the landlord, then I can go to like this censor of judges that then will send people to actually verify whether it's true or not. I think the other side that's really interesting is around blockchain contract enforcement. How do you make sure that what we agreed on in a contract actually happens in the real world? Again, in DeFi, it's relatively straightforward because the smart contracts have direct access to your wallet or your account. If I owe you $10 and we all agreed on that contract, we'll grab it and just pull it. But how do you then make me as a physical individual do something in what we call meat space, the real world? So the way I see this playing out is there'll be certain incentive systems in enforcement. Do I get locked out of my social media accounts if I don't do something in meat space, right? So there's that as enforcement. And then kind of you ramp up the penalties if I don't do something. Do I eventually get locked out of my apartment because my lock is connected because I didn't do something, right? So that's a space that you're right, it's not solved. It'll take 10, 20 years to solve that, if that's even a space we're going to. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm particularly interested in this how to bridge this digital blockchain side to the real. I think that's well. I'm kind of interested in cryptocurrency, but stuff is really interesting. So we're kind of running out of time. So let's squeeze in one like big problem question. So do you think the question is do you think that cryptocurrency will be the end all of centralized banking? Will there be one cryptocurrency in the future? Will there be one or two cryptocurrencies that will trading currency in the world? What do you think?
And so those are two questions. I think the first question will be kind of the main transformational digital platform that will impact finance, especially in a big way. I think sometimes if I was a bit older and I was born in the age of the internet, would I have felt that way back pre-NFTs, right? Like, would I have understood the impact that the internet might have? So I think that is the case with blockchain. Those who know me know that, although I try to keep it a bit separate. The second part around will there be one or two cryptocurrencies? Yeah, I don't think we'll have 100 kind of blockchains and cryptocurrencies, but I do think we will end up in a multi-chain world where different chains have different purposes. Where I think Bitcoin will be the primarily one for store of value, and then Ether will be the one that allows all the smart contracts to happen. But you have other blockchains like that allow interoperability between contracts and chains. So yeah, that's my view. And I mean, what I'm excited about in the last 6 to 9 months is the validation of that view has been coming thick and fast. Like just yesterday, GMC invested in the largest cryptocurrency custodian in the world. Temasek is a massive participant in Diem, so Libra, the Facebook thing. We've got governments that are custodying cryptocurrency. So Tesla has bought cryptocurrency. So like the validation is coming thick and fast. So I'm super excited about the space.
So yeah, I think that's about all the time we have for today. There's a ton of more questions on YouTube. We're sorry we can't answer all of them. So I guess what we'll have to do is have Erik back on this platform. Another round. I'd love to have you back, Erik. Thanks a lot for joining today as well. To everyone out there, if you like content like this, subscribe to our channel, like and share this video. On behalf of the Academy team, a big thanks to Erik again, a big thanks to our viewers. So I guess we'll end here and we'll see you next month. This presentation happens every last Friday of the month. So we'll see you next month.